Guys, today I'll be talking about my impromptu speech. So let's get started. Conor McGregor, the former two-division champion of the UFC, was known for his brash and confident attitude both inside and outside the octagon. However, in his rematch against Dustin Poirier, his confidence proved to be his downfall. During the build-up to the fight, McGregor repeatedly belittled Poirier, calling him a peasant and a weak hillbilly. But in the third round, Poirier absolutely beat McGregor down and won the fight through knockout. This was Conor McGregor's hugest loss after the victorious run in the league, and Dustin gave him a taste of humble pie. The quote I received is "Pride goes down before a fall." The phrase "pride goes down before" is a common idiom that means if a person becomes too arrogant or overconfident, they are likely to experience a setback or failure that will bring them down to a more humble level. Essentially, this is a warning against excessive pride, which can blind a person to their own weaknesses and can lead them to take unnecessary risks and make them make careless mistakes. I agree with this quote because I've seen too many instances of this quote being played out in combat sports, and it also shows in some of my aspects in my personal life as well. Pride goes before a fall acknowledges the humbling effects of failures and encourages and decourages overconfidence ego. And it teaches us to learn how to be humble and and never underestimate anything. Through the stories of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, the tortoise and the hare, and this most recent boxing fight, Ryan Garcia versus Devontae Davis, I will argue that this quote is the most I will argue that this is a very powerful quote and still relevant in today's society. First, let's talk about the tortoise and the hare. In the tortoise versus the hare starts off beating the tortoise in a race badly. The hare was way faster and had a huge gap advantage. But during the race, the hare started becoming lazy and started taking naps due to his high ego and confidence. However, when the hare was distracted by taking these naps, the tortoise ended up winning. This story is a great example of the quote I listed. It shows the hare is just being too overconfident and it actually led to his demise. Now that I gave a simple story of a little fable story, I'm going to tie it back into the story I said earlier with Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor, these two UFC fighters. Like I said earlier, Conor McGregor is known for his huge confidence and trash talk. McGregor usually talks a lot of trash, but ends up winning his fights, which probably gave him a lot more ego than usual. So when he went up against Dustin Poirier, he thought he could just talk all his trash and back it up, but he definitely underestimated Dustin Poirier's skill, and he ended up getting knocked down in the third round. This is something we never really seen before in Conor McGregor. Usually, Conor McGregor talks a lot of trash, wins a lot of fights, but in this case, it was very different. Um, the reason for this is because at the end of the day, he's still human. And the quote, "Pride goes after a fall," applied to Connor exactly when he lost. Because after Connor's loss, we can see a very noticeable difference in his next fights. He talked a lot less. He talked a lot less trash and was more humble. Now that I talked about two stories, one being in real life MMA and the second being the UFC, let's talk about a very let's talk about the quote being applied earlier and evaded. So basically, what I mean by that is this person that uses quote used it in his own life to avoid having a downfall. And in this story, I will talk about Javante Davis versus Ryan Garcia. This was a huge fight in the last month in boxing. Davis and Garcia are the two of the biggest name fighters of the boxing sport. Davis is a boxer who already has a higher resume than Ryan and fought way harder people and is more experienced. However, Ryan is an upcoming prodigy who is undefeated. Devontae, the more experienced boxers, when asked on a interview what he thought about Ryan, he said that the fight was going to be 50-50. And uh, Devontae Davis said, sure, he got experience with Ryan, but he also praised Ryan for being young and hungry. The fight happened, and Devontae Davis, even though he was praising Ryan, saying that it will be 50-50, Davis knocked out Ryan, and the fight wasn't even close. This story shows the quote being used ahead of time because Davis was not overconfident and he had no ego. He respected Garcia and prepared for him well, giving him a huge win over Garcia. This story shows that this quote does work in real life and it is very relevant to today's society. And because Davis was so humble, he didn't underestimate his opponents and made sure he worked extra hard to beat them. In conclusion, pride goes before a fall. My interpretation of this quote is when you let your pride get the best of you, it can be a great downfall. I 100% agree with this quote. Everyone should learn to be humble no matter how far you get in life. There's always people ahead of you, if not behind you, with more potential. You always got to stay humble and just work on yourself. And yeah, that's going to be it.